Hi! If this is your first time on my channel, hi, you wouldn't know, but I made a promise to myself more than anyone else that I was going to upload a video every single day for the month of October, and then I just didn't. I mean, there are reasons that I didn't, which I will not bore you with and go into. And I also know that I have about 6 subscribers, so none of you are going to be mad, but it's more like I'm mad at myself. But listen, things happen, life happens, what we're going to do about it. If you are new, I'm sure that was quite an introduction to my channel. I make videos mainly to do with mental health and other life kind of stuff. I've made quite a few videos about eating disorders, and this video is something that's been on my mind for quite a while. So today I'm going to be telling you about 5 shocking things I learned while I was in eating disorder therapy. And we're going to be talking about the things that absolutely blew my mind. I went there so deep and wrapped up in my eating disorder that my sense of food and body was completely distorted in my head. So these things that my therapist taught me and I learned through therapy absolutely blew my mind, and I thought that I'd share them in a video with you today because if you have an eating disorder, these things will probably help you a lot. So just for a bit of background, I had a course of eating disorder therapy that I had to go to a specialised eating disorder clinic for. Like, I was an outpatient, I had to go there once a week. I had that back in 2014, so that was like 5 years ago. I'm such an old person, oh my god. And prior to being referred there, I'd been struggling with an eating disorder for around 3 years. At the time, I was diagnosed with EDNOS, which stands for eating disorder not otherwise specified. And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that diagnosis has since been changed, like the name of it has been changed to OSFED, which stands for Other Specified Feeding or Eating Disorder. So this is kind of a lesser known diagnosis. When most people think eating disorders, we think anorexia, bulimia, and in the past few years, binge eating. That has definitely gotten more acknowledgement as a real disorder, because before it was kind of dismissed as it wasn't real. So those are kind of the 3 main ones that people immediately think of, but there are actually a whole host of other different eating disorders. So the first shocking thing I learned was about portion sizes. So my eating disorder displays in a way that I will restrict my food intake for several days, around 5 days, sometimes a bit more, sometimes a bit less, and then I will have around 2 days, again sometimes a bit more, sometimes a bit less, of eating whatever I want, which would sometimes lead to binging and purging, and then that cycle just continues. And at the time of having my eating disorder therapy, this had been going on for around 3 years, so I had completely lost all sense of portion size. I didn't know what the right portion size was. When we discussed it in therapy, she asked me, like, what do you think is the appropriate portion size for, like, breakfast? Not what you eat now, but what do I think, I should be eating, or that the average person without an eating disorder eats for breakfast. And I guessed like 1 slice of toast with something on it, like butter or jam or whatever. My therapist said that that's actually half the size of what a normal portion size would be for breakfast. She would normally expect someone to be eating 2 slices of toast. Now, with the rise of body positivity and intuitive eating, we know that you might not actually eat the same amount every single day. So some days you might have 2 slices of toast for breakfast, some days you might only have 1 because you're only hungry enough for 1. But it blew my mind that 2 slices of toast for breakfast was considered just like an average portion size. That blew my mind because I thought 2 slices of toast for breakfast was too much. I thought that was greedy. I thought that was overeating. That just goes to show how warped my sense of reality when it came to food actually was. Okay, so the next one, mind blown. So with my therapist, we'd often talk about like hypothetical situations when it came to food. So she'd be like, on one day you could have this, this and this. On another day you could have this, this and this. It was obviously a bit more complex than that, but for the purpose of this video, just let me have it. I remember her one time describing like this hypothetical situation of saying like, so you could have this for your breakfast and lunch one day, and then you could have like a chocolate bar as a snack in the afternoon. And I just remember thinking, I could have a chocolate bar in the afternoon, like not as part of a meal, or not on a special occasion, or not on a day that I have set ahead of time. I'm going to have a chocolate bar on this day. I could just have a chocolate bar if I wanted one mid-afternoon. Crazy talk. The third thing I learned, there are no such things as good and bad foods. My whole life, and I'm sure plenty of you can relate to this, my whole life I had categorized food into good and bad. And a lot of people use this language to describe food and they don't have eating disorders, right? Some of them may not even like struggle with body image or anything. They just use these words because they're just words, they don't mean anything. But for me, those types of words and that type of language massively fueled my eating disorder. So if I ate good food, I was good. If I ate bad food, I was bad. If I ate this bad food, then I had to feel guilty because I'd done something bad. And also when you get deeper and deeper into your eating disorder, these good and bad foods can become merged. So it was no longer just junk food that was bad to me. It was also stuff like bread. It was also stuff like pasta and rice. You can make food with quite high nutritional value from those items of food, but I just instantly wrote them off as bad. And my therapist taught me that there's no such thing as good and bad food. It's all just food. Food is neutral. It has no moral value. So you are not good because you've had a green smoothie that morning. You are not good because you've not eaten for this amount of hours or this amount of days. Likewise, you're not bad because you had a fucking piece of cake, Sharon. I've got notes down here that I'm reading off and it's so funny looking over them and just remembering, reliving the conversations I had with my therapist and me unlearning all of this stuff that had been shoved into my head before the therapy started. It's so funny. The fourth thing I learned was actually because I went to therapy one day kind of upset about something that happened on the weekend. We had a family barbecue, lots of people were over and there was just lots of food. Like my family really likes cooking and baking and it's like a love language of my family, as I'm sure it is with many families. We like to make food, we like to feed people, we like to celebrate with food. So on this family barbecue there was lots of people there, lots of food, and I ate a lot of it, basically. And I had like this strong sensation of being full. You know when you're just full and you're kind of just content, like you don't need any food, like you're good for now, you've got no hunger pains, nothing, like you're just fine. And then there's another type of full where it's a bit like, oh yeah, I can sense that I'm full. Not quite like binge eating level of full, where that's like another level of full. But you know when you can just feel like, oh, I might have to undo my trousers, I'm quite full. That's what it was like for me at this barbecue. So I went to therapy that week and told her about it. I was like, I feel like really bad that I was this full. And she told me, she told me that sometimes you are allowed to eat past the point of fullness. And she said a lot of people do it at like family get-togethers or special occasions, celebrations when there's a lot of food there and people are just having a good time, enjoying themselves. There's a lot of different food that you want to try. She said that a lot of people eat past the point of fullness and it's completely okay to do that sometimes. Oh my God, what the fuck? I think this one still blows my mind now because a lot of people don't even realise that now. That actually, like, yeah, if you eat past the point of fullness every now and again, nothing's actually going to happen to you. Like the world is not going to explode just because you've had to undo your trousers after eating a lot of mac and cheese. Do you know what I mean? Obviously, I'm someone that has struggled with binge eating as well as restriction. So I have to know the balance for myself. I have to know when something is leading into a binge and when actually no, I've just reached the point of fullness a little bit past it and I can stop now and I'm content and happy. If you go to therapy or counselling or anything similar, you might know that they give you a lot of printouts, like a lot of printouts. I remember my therapist asking me if I think about food a lot and my answer was, it's the only thing I think about. And I remember her telling me that it's scientifically proven, the more you restrict your food intake, the more your brain thinks about it. It's a survival mechanism. It makes complete sense. And she told me about this and she briefly mentioned the Minnesota starvation experiment and she gave me a printout. And I read it at home and it's absolutely fascinating. So let me know if you want a separate video all about the Minnesota starvation experiment because I think it's so interesting and the lessons learned from that experiment are like so vital to eating disorder recovery. Those are the 5 shocking things I learned in eating disorder therapy and I hope they help some of you. I know coming across ideas like the ones I've talked about in this video for the first time can seem so overwhelming and you're kind of like, but that goes against everything I've been taught. And that's kind of the exact point. If you have an eating disorder or issues with food, your brain is literally wired up in a certain way. You have neuron pathways going a certain way in your brain and you have to change them. You have to make new neuron pathways. I don't know too much about the science behind that, but I know that you have to literally, like in recovery, try and change your brain chemistry and learn these new ways of living, basically. So give this video a like if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to my channel if you want to see more of my face. Like I said, I'm gonna try and continue posting videos in October. If I don't manage to do it every day, it'll be every other day at least. And I'll see you in my next video. Goodbye! Number one most shocking thing. So the number one. So the first shocking thing. So the first shock.